Welcome to Writing a Conclusion. My name's Kay.
And my name's Beth.
So have you ever found it difficult to know how to write a conclusion? Or have you ever had feedback from your tutor or lecturer to say that your conclusion is too brief or vague? This video aims to explain the aim and purpose of a conclusion, to look at some key examples and to give you some top tips on how to successfully write a conclusion.
The aim of a conclusion is for you to restate your main arguments and points in a way that proves that you have answered the whole question. You do not need to include new information or evidence.
So, a conclusion should summarise the arguments stated in your assignment, and it should bring together your key conclusions. Students often say that they find it quite repetitive, a conclusion, but that is one of the key aims, to kind of bring back together the key points raised in the main body. So it shouldn't include any new information or references, because you're meant to be summarising and bringing together what you've already stated or argued. It should clearly link back to the title, so you should be making sure that you're addressing that title and bringing together your key points. And our advice is that it should roughly be one paragraph. But obviously this might vary depending on the length of the assessment. So if you're writing a 2,000 word assignment, it might be roughly one paragraph, but if you're writing a 10,000 word dissertation, it's likely to be a much more substantial conclusion. So make sure you double check with your own lecturers around the kind of key advice in terms of that. So in terms of looking at some examples now.
Let's imagine that you've been set an essay with the following title: Explore the limitations of Arnott's theory of emerging adulthood. Don't worry if you're not familiar with this theory, you don't need to be to understand these examples, but if you wanted to look it up, you could do. Here's our example of a not very good conclusion. As you can see, it's quite brief. Now, it does seem to be on topic, it's talking about Arnott and seeing what Arnott has argued, but it's a little bit vague and points aren't really explained fully. There are no references that have been used throughout the essay. They're not being drawn on again here to restate those points. I'm not fully understanding what this student is concluding because it's simply too short. Aha, here we have a better one. So, as you can see immediately looking at it, your marker will be thinking, okay, we have a substantial paragraph here. There are some references. There's a mixture of a short direct quote and some other references. They're drawing on 3 different authors, so they've clearly done their reading and drawn on the different points throughout the essay. It starts with in conclusion, and that really helps to indicate this is it, the final paragraph, the in conclusion. Points are explained fully. You might want to pause this one and take the time to read it. Ideas are summed up, key conclusions are made, and the language of that title is really brought back in, looking at limitations, looking at conclusions throughout about this particular topic.
So overall, we would say that our top tips for a conclusion is that you should aim to write your conclusion last, along with your introduction. That way you know actually what you are summarising and what your kind of key arguments were. So aim to write that as part of your final writing process. You do need to make sure that your introduction, main body and conclusion are a true representation of what you've discussed. So as markers, we sometimes get to a conclusion and go, actually, well, you didn't say that or argue that in the main body, or actually your introduction and conclusion aren't a mirror image of each other in terms of what you say you'll argue and then what you actually then go on and summarise. So you need to make sure that it's a true reflection of what you've actually discussed, and that's part of the proofreading process. In terms of knowing what to write in your conclusion, it's a really good top tip to go through your work kind of sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph, and just to kind of summarise what the key points or arguments were that you raised. So write down some kind of key words or phrases and then bring those together in the conclusion to summarise what you've actually written in the main body. We would recommend that you clearly indicate the start of your conclusion by using things like in conclusion or to summarise. And thinking about, is your assignment looking for a yes or a no answer? Or is it to consider the complexity of the issue? So is it looking for a concrete, yes, this is true, or no, this is false? Or is it wanting you to look at to what extent might this be true, or to what extent could this be challenged? In which case you'd need to summarise both kind of perhaps the strengths and limitations of something. And you should aim to use the words of the assignment question to prove that you have answered all of it. So mirroring across that language to really indicate to your markers that you've fully understood and engaged with the title. So best of luck with your conclusion, and if you do have any questions or recommendations for future videos, make sure that you leave us a comment below.